The champagne bubbles had barely settled in my stomach when my new wife rolled over in our honeymoon suite bed and said the words that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. I told Chase he could swing by later tonight. I'm Eli Granger, and I've always prided myself on being the smartest guy in any room. Built my own IT security company from nothing, clawed my way up from fixing computers in my mother's basement to owning a business that keeps half of Boston's small companies running. But lying there in that overpriced hotel suite, silk sheets still warm from what I'd thought was our first night as husband and wife, I felt like the biggest fool who ever lived. "What did you just say?" I asked, though I'd heard every word perfectly clear. Sabrina stretched like a cat, her blonde hair spilling across the pillow. Even now, even with those words hanging in the air between us, she was beautiful. That's what had hooked me in the first place. Sabrina Walsh, now Granger, though that wouldn't last much longer, was the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. PR manager at a downtown firm, Instagram perfect, the type who knew exactly which angle made her look best in every photo. Chase Banner, from the gym. He's been helping me with my fitness routine. She smiled that same smile she'd given me when I proposed 6 months ago. He wanted to congratulate us personally. The hotel room suddenly felt too small, too warm. I sat up, running my hands through my hair. "Sabrina, what exactly are you telling me?" She had the nerve to look confused. "What do you mean?" "Chase is a friend, a good friend." That's when I knew. Maybe it was the way she emphasized good friend, or maybe it was the fact that she'd mentioned another man's name in our marriage bed, but something cold and calculating clicked into place in my brain. The same instinct that had helped me build my business, the same careful attention to detail that made me good at finding security vulnerabilities in computer systems. "How good of a friend, Sabrina?" She sat up then, pulling the sheet around herself. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked uncertain. "Eli, you're being weird. It's our wedding night. Can we not do this now?" But I was already reaching for my phone. "Actually, let's do this right now." I called the front desk. "Hi, this is Eli Granger in the honeymoon suite. I need to speak with your concierge about changing our checkout time." Sabrina watched me with growing alarm as I arranged to have her belongings moved to a separate room. When I hung up, she was staring at me like I'd lost my mind. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I stood up, started getting dressed. "Giving you exactly what you want. A chance to spend time with your good friend Chase." "Eli, stop. You're overreacting." But I wasn't overreacting. If anything, I was underreacting. Because while I'd been on the phone with the concierge, I'd also been thinking about all the little things I'd ignored over the past few months. The way Sabrina always had her phone face down when we were together. How she'd started going to the gym more often, always looking perfect when she left and glowing when she came back. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer that she'd never worn for me. "Tell me about Chase," I said, pulling on my shirt. "There's nothing to tell. He's my trainer." "Your trainer who you invited to our honeymoon suite?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay, fine. We've gotten close, but it's not what you think." "What do I think, Sabrina?" Another pause. Longer this time. And in that silence, I heard everything I needed to know. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Room service bringing Sabrina's suitcases to take to her new room. I'd left a note on top of her makeup bag, written on hotel stationery in my careful handwriting. "Trips canceled. So is your secret." The thing about being in IT security is that you learn to think like the people you're protecting against. Hackers, data thieves, corporate spies, they all have one thing in common. They leave traces, digital footprints that most people don't even realize they're making. Sabrina had been leaving footprints all over the internet for months. I'd driven straight home from the hotel, leaving my new wife to figure out her own transportation. Our house, my house, since I'd put the down payment on it, Sat in one of those new developments outside Boston where everyone pretended to be richer than they actually were. Sabrina had picked it out, said it would be perfect for entertaining and building our image as a successful young couple. Now, sitting in my home office at 3 a.m, still wearing my wedding suit, I was learning exactly what kind of image my wife had been building. Her laptop was still logged into her personal email account. Rookie mistake, but then again, Sabrina had never been as smart as she thought she was. She was cunning, sure, but cunning and intelligent aren't the same thing. The first email I found was from 3 weeks ago. Can't wait for E to be out of town next weekend. My place or yours? C. Her response, mine. He's got that conference in Hartford. We'll have the whole weekend. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not anger exactly, more like the calm focus I got when I was tracking down a particularly tricky security breach. This was just another problem to solve, another system to crack. I kept reading. The emails went back 4 months. 4 months of planning secret meetings, sharing intimate details, and this was the part that really got to me, laughing about how clueless I was. He actually asked me why I was so happy lately. Poor guy has no idea his wife is getting the best workouts of her life. Chase's response, maybe we should invite him to watch sometime. Show him how it's really done. I saved everything to an encrypted folder on my personal server. Then I moved on to her cloud storage account. That's where I found the photos. I won't describe them in detail, because even now, even after everything that happened, some part of me still remembers loving the woman in those pictures. But let's just say that Chase Banner, personal trainer and Instagram fitness influencer, had been getting a lot more personal than his certification probably covered. The photos were time-stamped. I cross-referenced them with my own calendar, with the dates I'd been working late or out of town on business. Every single one corresponded to a time when Sabrina had told me she was doing something else. Yoga class, book club, dinner with her friend Brianna. That name kept coming up in the emails too. Brianna Walsh, no relation to Sabrina despite the shared last name, was Sabrina's best friend since college and her current lawyer. Corporate law, specializing in divorce and asset protection. I had a feeling I'd be hearing from Brianna soon. The sun was coming up by the time I finished my initial investigation. I'd mapped out the entire affair, when it started, where they met, how they communicated, even which hotels they preferred for their afternoon sessions. I'd also discovered something else interesting. I wasn't the only one being cheated on. Chase Banner had a girlfriend, a sweet-looking brunette named Jessica, who worked as a nurse at Boston General. Based on her social media posts, she had no idea that her boyfriend was spending his afternoons with married women. Yes, women, plural. Because Sabrina wasn't Chase's only side project. The man was running what amounted to a small business, using his position as a trainer to seduce bored housewives and lonely professional women. He documented everything too, the arrogant bastard. Photos, videos, even a spreadsheet ranking his conquests by various criteria. I won't repeat here. I sat back in my chair, watching the morning light filter through my office blinds. In the distance, I could hear our neighbor Mrs. Fenway starting her daily routine of watering her garden and collecting gossip from anyone unfortunate enough to cross her path. My phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. We need to talk. Coming home this morning. I typed back, your key still works, for now. Then I got to work preparing for phase 2 of my investigation. Because if Sabrina thought she could walk back into our house and gaslight me into forgetting what I'd discovered, she had seriously underestimated the man she'd married. I'd spent years learning how to protect systems from people who wanted to exploit them. Now it was time to put those skills to a different use. The front door opened downstairs just as I was finishing my preparations. I heard Sabrina's heels clicking across the hardwood floor, heard her call my name in that sweet voice she used when she wanted something. Eli, honey, where are you? I saved my work and closed the laptop. Time for the performance of my life. Sabrina looked perfect, as always. She'd changed out of her wedding dress into a casual sundress that showed just enough skin to remind me what I'd be missing. Her makeup was flawless, despite spending the night in a hotel room, and she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who'd never met a problem she couldn't charm her way out of. "There you are," she said, finding me in the kitchen making coffee. "We really need to talk about last night." I poured myself a cup, didn't offer her one. "Do we?" She sat down at the breakfast bar, crossing her legs in a way that had always gotten my attention before. "Eli, I think you misunderstood what I was trying to say about Chase." "Did I?" "Yes." She leaned forward, putting on her most sincere expression. "I was trying to tell you that he wanted to congratulate us, as a friend. I realize now how that must have sounded, especially with the timing, but honestly, honey, you jumped to some pretty wild conclusions." I sipped my coffee, watching her over the rim of the mug. Wild conclusions. "I mean, thinking that I would cheat on you? On our wedding night? Eli, that's—" She shook her head, looking hurt. "That's actually kind of insulting. Do you really think so little of me?" And there it was. The gaslight, turned up to full flame. Take the victim's legitimate concerns and flip them around. Make them feel guilty for even having those concerns in the first place. It was masterfully done. I had to give her credit. "So you're saying there's nothing going on between you and Chase Banner?" "Of course there's nothing going on. He's my trainer, Eli. We have a professional relationship." "Professional?" "Yes, professional." She stood up, moved closer to me. "Baby, I think you're letting your insecurities get the better of you. I know you've always felt a little threatened by the fact that I work out with attractive men, but I've never said anything about feeling threatened. Not in words, maybe, but I can tell. The way you look at me when I come home from the gym. The questions about my workout routine." She reached out to touch my arm. "Eli, I married you. Not Chase, not any of the other guys at the gym. You." It was a good performance. If I hadn't spent the night reading her emails and looking at her photos, I might have even believed it. Might have apologized for overreacting, taken her back to bed, and pretended the whole thing had been a misunderstanding. Instead, I pulled out my phone. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Checking something." I opened her email app, still logged in from when she'd used my phone to check her messages last week. "Just want to clear up this misunderstanding." Her face went pale. "Eli, that's private." "Is it?" I found the email thread with Chase, held the phone so she could see the screen. "Because this one from last Tuesday says, and I quote, 'Can't wait to feel you inside me again. E is working late, so we have all evening.'" She stared at the phone like it was a snake. That's not what it looks like." "What does it look like, Sabrina?" "I can explain." "Please do." She was quiet for a long moment, her mind racing. I could almost see the wheels turning, looking for an angle, a story that would make this all go away. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. Yes, Chase and I have gotten close. But it's not what you think. It's not emotional. It's just physical. Just intimacy. Just intimacy. Yes. And I know how that sounds, but Eli, it doesn't mean anything. It's just something I needed to get out of my system before we got married. I was going to end it after the honeymoon, I swear." I set down my coffee cup. "So your plan was to cheat on me right up until our wedding day, then stop? It's not cheating if there's no emotional connection. It's just exercise. A different kind of workout." The audacity of it was almost impressive. She was actually trying to convince me that adultery was just another form of fitness routine. "And what about this one?" I scrolled to another email. "The one where you and Chase are planning to meet up next week while I'm at the Boston Tech Conference?" Her composure cracked a little more. We were going to say goodbye. Properly. By having intimacy in our bed while I'm out of town. "Eli, please. And this photo here?" I showed her one of the tamer images from her cloud storage. This is just exercise too? She looked at the screen, and something changed in her expression. The fake vulnerability disappeared, replaced by something harder. How did you get that? You left your laptop logged in. You went through my private files? Your private files that you stored on our shared internet connection, in our house, on the computer I bought you. She stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. You had no right. I had no right? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sabrina, you've been screwing your trainer for 4 months. You invited him to our honeymoon suite. You've been planning to continue the affair throughout our marriage, but I'm the one who's out of line for finding out about it? That's different. How is that different? Because what I did was private, personal. It wasn't meant to hurt you. But it did hurt me. She softened again, switching tactics. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Eli. But we can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want. We can fix this. I looked at her standing there in our kitchen, beautiful and desperate and completely unrepentant despite her words. She wasn't sorry for cheating. She was sorry for getting caught. No, I said. We can't. What do you mean? I mean this marriage is over, Sabrina. I want you out of my house. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, anger, calculation, and finally, something that looked almost like relief. Fine, she said. But if that's how you want to play this, Eli, you should know that I'm not going to make it easy for you. Meaning? Meaning I have friends, good friends, friends who know how to protect women from abusive husbands. Abusive? Going through my private communications, throwing me out of our home on our wedding night, trying to control who I can and can't see. She smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. That sounds pretty abusive to me. I'm sure a judge would agree. And there it was, the real Sabrina, finally showing her face. Not the victim, not the remorseful wife, but the predator who'd been planning this all along. Get out, I said quietly. This is my house too. Get out, Sabrina, now, before I decide to share some of these photos with your boss, or Chase's girlfriend, or that neighbor of yours who loves to gossip. She stared at me for a moment, then grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, Eli, she called back. Not even close. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking about what came next. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But she'd made a critical error in judgment. She thought I was just another victim to be manipulated and discarded. She had no idea who she was really dealing with. I knew Sabrina would go straight to Sabrina Walsh, so I wasn't surprised when my phone rang at 8 o'clock that evening. What surprised me was that it wasn't Brianna calling. It was Chase Banner. We need to talk, he said without preamble. Do we? Look, man, I know you're pissed, but this whole thing has gotten out of hand. Sabrina's talking crazy, saying you threatened to ruin both of us. I leaned back in my desk chair, looking at the wall of monitors in my home office. I'd spent the afternoon doing more research, and the picture that was emerging was even more interesting than I'd initially thought. Did I threaten you, Chase? She says you're going to send photos to Jessica. Jessica, his girlfriend, the nurse. Should I not send them to Jessica? There was a long pause. Man, look, I know how this looks. How does it look? Like I'm some kind of player, right? But it's not like that. These women, they come to me. They're lonely, unhappy, looking for something their husbands can't give them. So you're providing a public service. I'm providing what they need, and it's not like I'm forcing anyone. They all know the score. I pulled up Chase's Instagram profile on one of my monitors. 43,000 followers, mostly women. Professional photos showing off his physique, motivational quotes about fitness and self-improvement, and carefully staged shots of him training attractive female clients. What exactly do you want, Chase? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? You don't blow up my life and I'll disappear. No more contact with Sabrina, no more drama, I'll even change gyms if you want. I had to admire his pragmatism, cut his losses, move on to the next target. It was probably how he'd survived this long without getting caught. And why would I take that deal? Because if you don't, this is going to get messy for everyone. Sabrina's already talking to lawyers. She's got friends, connections. She can make your life very difficult. More difficult than having my wife cheat on me with her trainer? Look, I'm trying to be reasonable here. No, you're trying to save your own ass. And you know what? I respect that. It's honest, at least. So we have a deal? I looked at the other monitor, which was displaying the results of my afternoon's research. Chase Banner wasn't just cheating on his girlfriend with Sabrina. He was running what amounted to a small-scale escort service, using his trainer credentials to meet wealthy, lonely women and then blackmailing them for money and gifts. There were at least 6 other women in his current rotation. Married women with a lot to lose if their affairs became public. He was smart about it too. Never asked for cash directly, just expensive gifts, gym memberships for his other clients, and introductions to their wealthy friends. It was actually an impressive operation. Too bad he'd made the mistake of targeting my wife. Counteroffer, I said. What? You help me with Sabrina, and I don't destroy your entire life. Silence on the other end of the line. What do you mean, help you with Sabrina? I mean, you tell me everything she's planning. Every conversation with her lawyers, every scheme she's cooking up, every move she's going to make before she makes it. You want me to spy on her? I want you to choose a side. Mine, or the unemployment line. Another pause. Longer this time. You're serious. Very serious. See, Chase, I spent some time this afternoon looking into your business model. Very creative, by the way. I especially liked Mrs. Patterson's Rolex that you're wearing in your gym photos. The one her husband gave her for their anniversary. How did you... I'm very good at finding information, and I found a lot of information about you. Bank records, social media accounts, email threads with at least 6 different women who think they're your only side piece. That's impossible. Those accounts are private. Nothing's private if you know where to look. So here's the deal, Chase. You work with me, or I work against you. Your choice. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. What exactly would I have to do? Just keep me informed. Sabrina trusts you, confides in you. I want to know what she's planning before she does it. And if I do this, you'll keep quiet about the other women? I'll keep quiet about everything. Your girlfriend, your clients, your little blackmail operation. All of it stays between us. How do I know you won't screw me over anyway? You don't. But you know for certain what happens if you don't cooperate. He was quiet for almost a full minute. I could practically hear him weighing his options. Okay, he said finally, but I want something in writing, some kind of guarantee. Chase, you're in no position to make demands. You either trust me or you don't. But either way, you're going to give me an answer right now. Fine, yes, I'll do it. Good. First assignment, I want to know everything Sabrina told you about her conversation with Brianna today. She said Brianna thinks she can get half of everything in the divorce. The house, your business, alimony. She's also talking about filing a restraining order, claiming you're emotionally abusive. Based on what? Going through her private stuff, throwing her out of the house, threatening to embarrass her publicly. Brianna says it's a pattern of controlling behavior. I had to give Brianna credit. She was good at her job. What else? She wants me to document any contact you try to make with her. Phone calls, texts, emails. Anything she can use to show you're harassing her. And you're going to do that? I'm going to tell her I'm doing that. What I actually do is up to you. Smart man. Smarter than I'd given him credit for. One more thing, Chase. I want you to keep seeing her. What? Don't break it off. Keep the affair going. Let her think everything's normal between you two. Why? Because a cheating wife has a lot less credibility in divorce court than a heartbroken victim. And because I'm not done collecting evidence yet. This is getting complicated. It was already complicated, now it's just organized. After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about the next phase of my plan. Sabrina thought she was playing chess, but she was really playing checkers. She had good lawyers and loyal friends, but she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated her opponent. I opened a new document on my computer and started typing. If Sabrina wanted to play hardball, I was going to show her what hardball really looked like. But first, I had some more research to do. Mrs. Eleanor Fenway had lived in the neighborhood longer than anyone else, and she knew everyone's business better than they knew it themselves. She was 73 years old, sharp as a tack, and had perfected the art of gathering information while appearing to do nothing more than tend her garden. Which is why I was standing on her front porch at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, holding a cup of coffee and wearing my most innocent expression. "Eli, dear," she said, opening the door before I could knock. "I was wondering when you'd come by." "Morning, Mrs. Fenway. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all. Come in, come in. I just put on a fresh pot." Her living room was exactly what you'd expect from a woman who'd been collecting neighborhood secrets for decades. Comfortable furniture arranged to provide perfect sight lines to the street, a telescope on a side table that she claimed was for bird watching, and photo albums filled with pictures of every block party, garage sale, and minor drama that had occurred in the past 20 years. "I heard about you and Sabrina," she said without preamble, settling into her favorite chair by the window. "Did you? Honey, half the neighborhood heard you two arguing yesterday morning. The other half heard about it from the first half by lunchtime." I sipped my coffee, waiting. Mrs. Fenway was like a master fisherman. She knew exactly how much line to give before setting the hook. "That girl never was right for you," she continued. "Too pretty, too ambitious. Girls like that don't settle down, they just pause between opportunities." "You think so?" "I know so. I've been watching people for 70 years, Eli. I can spot a user from 3 blocks away." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "You want to know what I really think? I think she married you for your money and your house, and now she's looking for a way to keep both without having to keep you." It was eerily close to my own assessment of the situation. "That's a pretty cynical view, Mrs. Fenway." "Cynical, maybe, but also accurate." She stood up, walked to her window. "You see that blue car parked across the street? The one that's been there every morning this week?" I looked where she was pointing, a blue Honda Civic with tinted windows. "Belongs to a private investigator named Marcus Webb. Your wife hired him to follow you around, take pictures, document your daily routine." "How do you know that?" "Because I make it my business to know who's watching my neighbors. I called the license plate into my nephew at the DMV, then looked up Mr. Webb's business license online." She smiled. "The internet is a wonderful thing, isn't it?" I had underestimated Mrs. Fenway. Badly. "What else do you know?" "I know that your wife has been having her gentleman friend over every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon for the past 3 months. I know she's been telling people you're emotionally abusive and controlling. And I know she's planning to file for divorce next week." "How could you possibly know that?" "Because Brianna Walsh is my great-niece, dear, my late sister's granddaughter." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Brianna is your great-niece?" "She is. And she's a lovely girl, but she has one weakness. She can't keep a secret from family, especially when that family member is helping pay for her law school loans." This was an unexpected development, and a potentially very useful one. "Mrs. Fenway, are you offering to help me?" "I'm offering to share information. What you do with that information is your business." She sat back down, folded her hands in her lap. "Sabrina thinks she's very clever, but she's made some mistakes. Big ones." "Such as?" "Such as assuming that everyone in this neighborhood is as shallow and self-absorbed as she is. She's been telling people that you're the problem, that you're controlling and jealous, and possibly dangerous. And people believe her? Some do. The newer residents, the ones who don't know you very well. But the people who've been here longer, who've watched you help elderly neighbors with their computers and shovel driveways after snowstorms without being asked? She shook her head. We know better. What's your point? My point is that public opinion matters in situations like this. Judges are human beings, and human beings are influenced by what other people think. If Sabrina can paint you as an abuser, she wins. If she can't, she shrugged, and you can influence public opinion. I can share facts with people who are interested in hearing them. Facts about who was really having affairs, who was really being dishonest, who was really planning to hurt whom. I set down my coffee cup, looked at this remarkable old woman who'd just offered to be my secret weapon in a war I was only beginning to understand. What would you want in return? Nothing. Well, almost nothing. She smiled. I want front row seats to watch that little schemer get what's coming to her. Mrs. Fenway, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I think you're right, dear. Now, let me tell you what Brianna told me about their strategy session yesterday. For the next hour, Mrs. Fenway laid out everything Sabrina and her lawyer were planning. The restraining order, the abuse allegations, the private investigator, the plan to claim half of my business assets. It was comprehensive, well thought out, and would probably have worked if I hadn't had a spy in their camp. When I left Mrs. Fenway's house, I had a much clearer picture of what I was up against. More importantly, I had a plan for fighting back. But first, I needed to have a conversation with my old friend Rick Martinez, who owned the neighborhood bar where half of these people spent their evenings sharing gossip and making bad decisions. It was time to start building my own network of allies. Rick's Tavern wasn't much to look at from the outside, just another neighborhood bar squeezed between a dry cleaner and a pizza place. But inside, it was the unofficial community center for everyone within a 5-mile radius. Rick Martinez had owned the place for 15 years, and he'd perfected the art of being everyone's friend while staying neutral in their personal dramas. Until now. Eli, man, I heard about you and Sabrina, Rick said, sliding a beer across the bar to me. It was 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, and the place was mostly empty except for a couple of regulars watching sports on the big screen. What did you hear? That she's been stepping out on you with that trainer from the gym. Also that she's claiming you're some kind of psycho control freak. He leaned against the bar, lowered his voice. For what it's worth, I don't buy the second part. Thanks, I think. Look, I've known you for 3 years? You're not the type to lose your shit over nothing. If you're pissed at Sabrina, she probably gave you a good reason. Rick was one of the few people in the neighborhood who'd known me before I met Sabrina. We'd bonded over late-night conversations about business ownership, the challenges of building something from nothing, and the loneliness that came with being the guy everyone expected to have his life figured out. She gave me several good reasons. Yeah, I figured. He wiped down a glass, thinking. You know what's funny? She was in here Monday night with that friend of hers, the lawyer, Brianna something. Brianna Walsh. That's the one. They were sitting in that corner booth talking real quiet, but voices carry in here when you know how to listen. And they were planning how to screw you over in the divorce, talking about hiding assets, claiming abuse, making you look like the bad guy. He set down the glass, looked me in the eye. Eli, I've served a lot of drinks to a lot of people having a lot of conversations. Most of the time I mind my own business. But what I heard Monday night, that wasn't just divorce planning. That was character assassination. This was exactly what I'd hoped to hear, but I needed to be careful not to seem too eager. Did they say anything specific? Brianna was coaching her on how to act in court, telling her to cry at the right moments, to flinch if you raised your voice, to document every interaction like you were stalking her. He shook his head. Man, if I didn't know you better, I'd think you were married to a sociopath. What else? They talked about your business. Brianna thinks she can get half of it in the settlement, maybe more if she can prove you used marital assets to fund it. Did you use marital assets? Some. We combined finances after we got engaged, but the business was already established, already profitable. That's what I figured. But Brianna seems to think she can make a case anyway. Rick pulled out his phone, showed me a voice memo app. Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I recorded some of their conversation. I stared at him. You recorded them? I record everything that happens in this bar after 9 p.m. Liability insurance, you know? Too many people claim they weren't as drunk as they actually were, or that someone said something they didn't actually say. He shrugged. It's just good business. And you're willing to share that recording? I'm willing to share it with someone who's being set up by his cheating wife and her scumbag lawyer, yeah. He forwarded the audio file to my phone. I put in my earbuds and listened to Sabrina and Brianna planning my destruction in clinical, calculating detail. It was even worse than Mrs. Fenway had described. Rick, this is evidence that they're planning to commit perjury. Yeah. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about that while I finished my beer. What was I going to do about it? I'm going to fight back. Good. How? Carefully, strategically, and with better information than they have. You need help? I looked at my friend, this guy who'd just handed me a weapon I could use to destroy my wife's credibility in court, and realized that I'd been thinking about this all wrong. I'd been approaching it like a solo operation, like something I had to handle by myself. But the best security systems weren't built by one person working alone. They were built by teams of specialists, each contributing their unique skills to create something stronger than any individual component. Actually, yeah, I do need help. What kind of help? The kind that requires absolute discretion and a willingness to bend some rules. Rick grinned. My favorite kind. What do you need? Information. About Sabrina, about Chase, about everyone in their circle. I need to know what they're planning before they plan it, and I need to know their weaknesses before they know I know them. And then? And then I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. Rick extended his hand across the bar. Count me in. We shook on it, and I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was building an offense, and Sabrina had no idea what was coming. The call came at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I was in my office going through the latest intelligence reports from my growing network of allies when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Eli? It's Jessica, Chase's girlfriend. I sat up straighter. This was unexpected. Jessica, how did you get this number? I found it in Chase's phone, along with some other things. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. We need to talk. About what? About what my boyfriend has been doing with your wife, and with a lot of other women. 20 minutes later, Jessica Chen was sitting in my living room, holding a cup of tea and looking like her world had just collapsed, which, from what she was telling me, it basically had. I found the photos yesterday, she said. Not just of Sabrina, of at least 6 other women. Married women, mostly. I'm sorry. Are you? Because from what I can tell, you've known about this for weeks. She wasn't wrong. I had known, and I hadn't told her, but I'd had my reasons. I was gathering evidence. Evidence for what? For my divorce. And for something else. Jessica set down her tea, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. What's something else? For destroying the people who thought they could destroy me. She was quiet for a moment, processing that. I want to help. Jessica, no, listen to me. I've been with Chase for 2 years. I thought we were building a life together. I was saving money for a ring, thinking about proposing to him myself because he was too traditional to let me pay for anything. She laughed bitterly. Turns out he wasn't too traditional to let 6 other women pay for everything. What do you mean? The gifts, Eli. Expensive watches, designer clothes, gym equipment, even his car payments. He's been living off these women for months, maybe years. And I was subsidizing it by paying for our dates, our groceries, our rent. This was news to me. I'd known about the gifts, but I hadn't realized the full extent of Chase's financial dependence on his victims. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that we work together to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they're dealing with. That could get complicated. It's already complicated. The question is whether we're going to be victims or whether we're going to fight back. I studied Jessica's face in the lamplight. She was pretty in a wholesome way, the kind of woman who probably volunteered at animal shelters and sent birthday cards to her elderly relatives. But there was something else there now, something harder. What did you have in mind? I have access to Chase's apartment, his computer, his files. Everything he's been hiding from me I can get to. And you want to share that information? I want to burn his life to the ground. And if that helps you burn Sabrina's life to the ground too, even better. We spent the next hour going through everything Jessica had discovered. Chase's operation was even more extensive than I'd realized. He wasn't just seducing married women for gifts and money, he was blackmailing them, taking compromising photos and videos, then threatening to share them unless his victims continued to pay. It was sophisticated, systematic, and completely illegal. Jessica, this is evidence of multiple felonies. I know. If we turn this over to the police will arrest Chase. But what happens to the women? Their lives get destroyed anyway. Their marriages, their careers, their reputations. She shook her head. There has to be a better way. What kind of better way? The kind where Chase and Sabrina get what they deserve, but the other victims don't get caught in the crossfire. I had to admit, I liked the way Jessica thought. She was angry, but she was also strategic, focused on justice rather than just revenge. All right, but if we're going to do this, we do it right. No half measures, no backing out once we start. I'm in. And no one else can know. Not your friends, not your family, no one. Understood. Good. Because what I'm planning isn't just going to destroy Chase and Sabrina. It's going to humiliate them, publicly, permanently, and in front of everyone they've ever tried to impress. Jessica smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. Tell me more. I opened my laptop, showed her the files I'd been building. Photos, videos, financial records, email threads, social media posts, and detailed timelines of every lie, every betrayal, every scheme. In 2 weeks, there's going to be a neighborhood block party. Annual thing, everyone attends, lots of photos and social media posts. Very public, very visible. And that's where we're going to give Chase and Sabrina the send-off they deserve. What exactly are you planning to do? I showed her the presentation I'd been building. A comprehensive, multimedia exposé of everything Chase and Sabrina had been doing, complete with evidence, timelines, and a detailed breakdown of their various schemes and lies. You're going to show this to everyone? I'm going to show this to everyone who matters. Their friends, their colleagues, their families. Everyone who's been taken in by their lies. Jessica stared at the screen, her expression shifting from shock to admiration to something that looked almost like hunger. This is beautiful. This is justice. When do we start? We already started. The question is, are you ready to finish it? She closed the laptop, looked me in the eye. Let's destroy them.